Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing New.
Welcome to IBFP University, where we educate casuals. And this is another edition of Fanboys Exposed, and today we start with Tobias. And Tobias states, how is Deontay Wilder having a blackout against Harold Sconiers relevant? People get dropped early in their career. That's what those fights are for, to learn from them. People need to realize things like this happen. It's just as irrelevant as when Fury got dropped early in his career, when Canelo drew against a journeyman, when Hopkins had his lost his first fight, when AJ got outboxed by Irislandi Savon, and in amateur I could go on and on. This proves nothing. Otherwise, several all-time greats would be garbage because they lost early. So Tobias obviously didn't get the point of the video, so I will be happy to help a fanboy in need. And this is what we're going to do. So Deontay Wilder having a blackout against Harold Sconiers, getting dropped against Harold Sconiers, getting outboxed against Harold Sconiers until he got the knockout against this guy. It was a garbage truck juice performance. Now this guy tells me, Tobias says, well, it's not relevant. Those fights, that's what those fights are for, to learn from them. That is what they're for, to learn from them. But Deontay Wilder has not learned from them. He's not. And so you see the guy almost get knocked out by a 50-year-old Luis Ortiz on high blood pressure medication, a guy who just left the ICU. So that's the guy. So he's learned from that Harold Sconiers fight. He's learned from that fight because he lost pretty much every round that he didn't drop Luis Ortiz in that fight. What about the rematch? He lost every single round in second of that fight up until the knockout, until Luis Ortiz gassed out. This is a much older Luis Ortiz. This is a much fatter Luis Ortiz. So you're telling me that he learned from the Harold Sconiers fight? Is that what you're saying? No. Look at this. Gerald Washington, El Gallo Negro. So he fought Gerald Washington, and he lost all of the early rounds until he got the stoppage again. He did not learn from the Harold Sconiers fight. His performance and boxing skills is garbage truck juice. That's why he is a hype job, a one-trick pony. He's a fraud. He's not real. He's a fake. See, this is the problem with fanboys. You simply don't understand boxing. That, you can't mention Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua. You can't mention the great Bernard Hopkins, Tyson Fury. You don't mention those guys in all-time greats along with Deontay Wilder, a one-trick pony who had one belt and who's afraid to unify, who has no skills and only dependent on the right hand. I can go on and on. Look at Deontay Wilder against Eric Molina. You see his performance. This dude got hurt by a bum. He got hurt by a bum. See, he did not learn his lessons. All of these fights are fights after fights after fights where he went in there and lost all these rounds, and then at the end, he hit him with a right hand. But I've always asked this same question. What happens when that right hand fails you? Tyson Fury is what happens when that right hand fails you. And who else? Look at him. He avoided Dillian White, Anthony Joshua. He avoided all the top fighters in the division simply because he understood that they had more to offer than just these simple bums who've been pretty much outboxing him until he caught him with a right hand. So you got to be honest about it. This guy never learned anything, and how dare you compare him to these guys? Look at Canelo Alvarez. You're going to compare him to a pound-for-pound superstar? You're going to compare him to a guy who won multiple divisions, who's unified different belts? You're going to compare him to this guy who's already a Hall of Famer and considered an all-time great in a sport? You're going to compare him to this guy, a Deontay Wilder one-trick pony? You got to be stupid. Then you're going to compare him to Tyson Fury, who has an elite level win on his resume, and Klitschko, who's held multiple world titles at one time. You're going to compare him to this Fury, who's has elite level boxing skills. You're going to compare him to that guy? You're going to compare him to Anthony Joshua, who's fought and has the best resume in the heavyweight division right now, who has, all the other belts except for the WBC, who's unified the belts twice. So you're telling me you're going to compare him to this guy, a Deontay Wilder, who's never unified, who's never done anything in the sport? Are you serious, or are you just stupid?